can pick up some folk who are talking about some of the potentials of traveling out of Fort Balarian. And I forgot that I was actually looking at a different map than you all right now. So if you look at that home screen where you guys are right now, this is some of what Sindra gave you, was like somewhat of a filled out map of what she could find of this area. So you guys are obviously in the Port Nyanzaru. Fort Balarian is a small fort that is also on a pretty much similar peninsula. And in particular, that is very much a fort of Baldur's Gate. And in particular, the Flaming Fists, who are mercenaries who come out of Baldur's Gate. It is one of those unique situations where a lot of Baldur's Gate's fighting force is actually the mercenaries. And Baldur's Gate is very unique in that they're one of the few places that kind of has their own standing army, as well as participating in the Lord's Alliance, and the Flaming Fists are kind of that gray area of how they operate in that one. So they make a kind of interesting effect here, but you all would understand that the powers of Baldur's Gate have a little bit of influence here, and among other things, Baldur's Gate is, of the Sword Coast, the most influential in Chult, as it's also what most of the actual merchant princes operate out of, shipping stuff to Baldur's Gate, since the expulsion of but you all understand that they have charters of exploration that the Fort of Balarian sells to people before undertaking jungle expeditions. And the Flaming Fists will punish people that they find in the jungle who do not have this paperwork.
Oh, how do we get that paperwork?
Again, that's kind of just overhearing stuff from people having a conversation. If you want to go up to them and on some level kind of share the fact that you have overheard what they were saying.
What do you think, Yarrick? Do we need some jungle papers?
I imagine that might be something if we speak to some of these potential guys, perhaps they might know more about. But I've no issue with if you want to ask these folk over here.
Cool. I'm gonna get up and walk over and try to introduce myself. I'm like, I like to study culture. Just got into town. Interested to hear about the way things work in the jungle. I think you guys might know something about that.
So that's just kind of how you're introducing yourself?
Yeah. Just charging ahead.
So the person is going to kind of look away from the people that they're speaking to, and you see just this plump gentleman who's got like 3 different kind of like mustache parts. He's got his mustache that goes to the right, mustache that goes to the left, and kind of nothing in between, like right below his nose. And they extend out like about 6 inches, and a big old goatee that kind of hangs out around the same distance. It very much looks like the east, west, and southern points of a compass on a map. And his nose almost makes the northern point. And as he kind of looks up at you, you see this plump gentleman, big old red mustaches. He's got very rosy cheeks, as you can tell. He's probably already well intoxicated, and it shows on his face. And very quickly he kind of stands up and he slams his arm into yours and brings you in for a big hug.
Hey.
And as he kind of brings you in and he like taps your back a few times as he hugs you, he's like, "Well, my friend, you have come to the right place and you've met the right people." And as he brings you in, he just kind of like smiles like real big into your face. "My name is Volothamp Geddarm, and by God, you already knew that. But luckily, I don't mind telling you, you could call me Volo."
Volo? The Volo?
Oh, so you have heard of me. Uh, be kind. Say as many things complimenting me as much as you would like.
Well, I could start with your mustache and end with your world travels, but Volo, you're so famous in Waterdeep. Can't believe I would find you, but of course you're in Chult, of course.
I'm actually working on a new book and also trying to sell my current publications. But let's talk more about me. Where are you sitting? Please buy me a drink. And he very quickly just kind of ignores the people that he was speaking with, and he's looking to join your table.
All right, over here. Here's my friend. And soon,
Excellent, excellent. So, of course, you know me. What's your name there? I don't care. My name's Volothamp Geddarm. It's a pleasure to meet me. I know, I know. And he's going to sit down with you guys.
I'm gonna give Jarek like an eye and a smirk and a wink.
Jarek's gonna
So,
glance over towards the other table and try to see, do they look like happy that this guy's left, relieved that he's left,
roll an insight check.
sad?
I think anybody would be relieved, right?
Looking over, you see these people are kind of trying to hide themselves. At this point, they're just like very coyly sipping from their drinks. But you can kind of gather they're probably like, "Holy shit, what the fuck just happened to us? Let's try to pretend like he cannot see us and maybe he won't come back."
Well, Volo, nice to meet you. Jarek.
There's few things as beautiful as hearing one's name. Volothamp Geddarm, at your service. Have you purchased my book yet? And he's gonna pull out a copy of Volo's Guide to Monsters and set it on the table. And as he does this, he's going to open it up and he's gonna start to show you some of the fine drawings inside of the book. And he's just gonna start to describe them and just kind of flip through. About 5-10 minute sales pitch goes on. He never stops talking. He takes very quick breaths that flow right into another word, and the whole time, if you even try to say anything, he just talks over you.
Yeah, so Jarek would kind of try to say a few things a couple times, stop, and then just kind of let him go on. Kind of a little amazed at how much he can talk without without taking a breath. I'm
So as
trying to
he
follow
gets
along, but Jarek's not much of a he's not a very skilled reader, so he's kind of just like more looking at the pictures than sorry, that
as
was it.
he gets towards the end, he finishes with showing you the picture of the. This is the Yuan Ti Pit Monster. Oh, that was a hell of a day. You might think Volotharp Canam can't get away from that one, but I'm here. I'm now, and I've got the book here for you for 50 gold pieces. And he just goes silent for the next few minutes. If you guys don't respond that you are ready to buy the book, he just holds it up in front of you, doesn't move, doesn't say a word.
Well, I mean, if we could afford 50 gold pieces, I'm sure we would buy the book, and it probably will keep us alive. 50 is a little steep for us, though. We just got to town, Volo. I think we could maybe do 5.
He sits there silently for the rest of about 5 minutes, still holding the book.
It's a fine book. Yark, what do you think?
Jarek's going to he's gonna nod. It perhaps a fair price, but as my companion here mentioned, we're a little short on disposable funds. Is there anything we can offer in kind rather than coin? Anything you need for the book, or for your new writings?
Yeah, we do have a story, certainly, that you might be interested in, Volo. And we could probably find a way to feed you and get you another drink.
So eventually, as the 5 minutes of silence kind of wears down, he's eventually going to call out and he's going to say, Folletta, these fine gentlemen are going to be buying me a drink. Just put that on their tab and bring those on over. And he's going to put the book away as he kind of leans back into your table, taking up a few of the seats. And he just throws his arms up over a couple of the others. And he just sits back and he's like, well, not everybody is wealthy enough to appreciate the finer bits of art, but it's good that you know the quality of my work, and you know that I am as famous as Volothamp Geddarm always should have been, always will be, and, well, you've seen how beautiful I am.
Dude, your mustache is out of control.
Not everybody can afford the finer ways of having a quality mustache, and I must say, the humidity down here, Schultz, is not kind to high-quality hair products.
Well,
Sorry,
God.
go ahead.
Well, the drawings are amazing, and your travels are incredible. And we do have a story we'd like to run by you to see if you have any sort of insight for us, because you've of course been everywhere and seen everything. My friend has something to say though. Jarek, what was that?
If you have any intention of sharing a story, I'm going to need you to fill out this contract and sign over all rights to me. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to keep it to yourself because I'm liable to write about it. Because my experience is my life, and Volothamp Geddarm is a writer, first and foremost, and I don't care who told the story. So, lay it on me, baby. What do you got? And he's just going to slap a piece of paper down on the table.
Jarek, anything?
I'm not much of a storyteller myself, but Volo, tell me, how long have you been in Chult?
Oh, this expedition feels like it's been going on for ages. Got a few more copies of my book to sell, and once Volothamp Geddarm doesn't have any more books, I think it'll be time to go back home.
Where is home?
Home is where my publisher is, so I can sell more books. Volothamp Geddarm is a man of the world. I don't set my roots anywhere unless I have to.
And so, if we were to come into some money or decide that we did need to purchase this book, where could we find you in the next few days? Do you spend much time here? And he'll kind of gesture around to the tavern.
When you're searching for Volo, among the best ways to find Volo is always to buy him a drink. Call out his name, for Volo will answer. But more than likely, you're gonna find me with the different merchant princes. I am always welcome in their homes, though they may not know it until they actually welcome me. But Volothamp Geddarm is quite pleased to stay with the merchant princes. They make sure to take good care of Volo. If at all possible, though, I'm gonna leave this place as soon as possible. So these fine books at 50 gold apiece. Right now, for sale, for 3 easy payments of, let's see, he's gonna say 17 gold and 52 silver. I do not think that comes up to less than 50 gold, but it's my attempt at doing 3 easy payments from a guy who is clearly not trustworthy. So he'll again put away the book, and eventually the barmaid kind of comes back around, and he doesn't really sip from his drink. You can see that he's, like, with his first drink, has almost finished the beer already, and has chugged most of it. Kind of sets it down as he, like, gasps for air, and he kind of looks over you all, and they're a precious commodity. Got a limited time to know. Volothamp Geddarm's right here, right now. Now's the best time to make that expenditure. Leap for it. Buy Volo's Guide to Monsters. As he reaches his hand out in the air and kind of like does the like type across the sky with his hand.
I do want a copy of that book. But unfortunately, I can't afford it today, Volo. Maybe you can help us, though, and I sign the paper with a big X. And tell him that we hear there's been something that's been happening to the resurrected. People are becoming unresurrected. Have you heard about this?
There's certainly some happenings going on down here in Chaltz. It's hard to tell what exactly is causing the undead and the very recently dead to act so strange, but it definitely is something new is going on here.
It's a fine delineation by an author between the dead and the recently dead.
Give me a second to find a specific name. Damn. He's one of the only people who you will probably ever get this name from, and I currently cannot find it. So, I am going to say he tells you the name of the necromancer who has basically caused most of the problems with the undead in this land. I feel like I have it. Let me confirm it real quick.
It's not a Sararek, is it?
No.
That's the only like necromancer lich I know. So
Right as I press talk, I hit the cough. So yeah, he's going to kind of respond to you. As far as I've been able to tell, Volothamp Geddarm does good research, and I've found that Rasni seems to be the cause of the undead going crazy here. Something of late has caused him to lose control of his hordes, and as the undead rages, there's something else at work. Appears to be fighting him from being able to control his undead. And with that was the start of whatever has plagued the recently dead. Many of these people are being consumed by this new magic, and they're dying day by day. Many others have said where they've been able to resurrect their friends in the past, over these last few 10 days, they've found themselves incapable of performing the very same rituals of resurrection. And when their magic is spent, their friend remains dead. It would appear Volothamp Geddarm has found a solution that for the first time in a long time, death is actually permanent. And with a big smirk on his face, he's just going to kind of lean back. He pulls out a pipe that is about the size of his forearm, lights a little match, and starts to puff on the pipe.
Wow. What is like? Where do you get info about Grozny? Like, is he a friend of yours, Volo? Do you know him?
Listen, what do the merchant princes make of all this, all these strange goings on?
Rosny lived many hundreds of years ago. And that's when a lot of things started with the undead in these parts. And as far as I can tell, he turned himself into a great and powerful lich. And in a very similar way to the spell plague of old, you can read about in my first publication, and he's just going to list off a Volothamp Geddarm publication, and we'll call it Volothamp's Guide to the Spell Plague, because I know he wrote something about it. I don't know the title of it. But he's going to talk about Volothamp's Guide to the Spell Plague, and he's going to eventually stop talking about it about 10 minutes later and offer it to you guys for 35 gold.
Well, that seems like a fascinating read. I think we're still broke, but we'll get you another drink.
Again, after about 5 minutes of silence where he holds up Volothamp's Guide to the Spell Plague, he eventually kind of moves on and continues on with the conversation. And you can gather, pretty much anytime you guys discuss anything that he's written about, he's probably going to pull out one of his books. He's probably going to pitch it to you guys for about 10 minutes, and then he sits there with like the foot in the door kind of technique of, I'm just going to hold it in your face until you buy it, and if you don't, eventually we'll continue on, because maybe I'll sell you the next one. But eventually he kind of continues on, and Yarrick, you asked what do the merchant princes think about this?
Yeah, about like the what he was talking about with the undead, like the recent.
From what I've gathered from my many fine friends among the merchant princes, they all love Volothamp Geddarm, as obviously, who wouldn't love Volo? Many of them think business as usual. But I have on good authority that in particular, there's going to be a whole lot less sales of... Give me 1 second here. Jessamine's going to be selling a whole lot less sales of her sanctions for the removal of problematic folk. With death being a little bit more permanent, I don't think Nyanzaru feels as comfortable allowing it to happen. I think people are going to take things a lot more seriously now.
Interesting.
I didn't quite follow that. So Jasmine's gonna sell less what? Like retrievals from execution? Is that what you're saying?
Like, are you asking as the player or as the character?
I didn't carry it as a player. I didn't quite understand what you said, and then I was asking a question as a
So,
character.
Jessamine is one of the 7 merchant princes.
Got that.
In particular, she is the one that sells death, basically. The only sanctioned way to kill somebody in the port is to purchase a sanction from her. But basically, what you gathered from that, what he shared with you, was that among the biggest things that the princes are really considering this is that Jessamine's not going to make murder as legal as it has been in the past.
Got it. Well, we should see her because she's certainly it's going to hurt her business. It's very. You sure you're not an economist, Volo?
I'm a people person. Volothamp Geddarm is good with people. I deal with people. And I know people. And Jessamine is a good friend of mine. Jessamine loves Volothamp Geddarm. And she appreciates what Volothamp knows. Volothamp knows people.
I imagine you're good friends with Wakongo as well. Can you tell us about him?
Volothamp and Wakongo go way back. He's one of my greatest friends. He's actually quite close to me, and he's visited a few times to Waterdeep, though he doesn't take well to the breezes and the it's strange air for Wakanga. He does not enjoy Waterdeep, but he stayed at my own personal villa a few times while I was back in the old Waterdeep. And I've actually stayed with Wakanga Tamu a little bit more than the other merchant princes. I find him quite fascinating. In particular, he's the guy to see about any bit of magic, and we both share a very similar love for knowledge, reading, books. He's got my full collection. Wakanga Tamu does not hold back on buying Volothamp Geddarm's complete edition, and he pulls out like a big ass book, and when he sets it on the table damn near falls over, and he picks it up off of the table right as any beers that are on the table fall over and spill all over the table.
If he bought that, no wonder you're good friends. How much would that set us back?
If you can't afford to damn it, if you've got to ask, you can't afford it.
Fair enough. Well, this has been quite enlightening, Volo. And then Jarek's gonna glance towards Island to see if he has any more questions.
Yeah, Volo. Like, so we're gonna see Jasmine for sure, and Wakanga. We're going there for dinner. I think tomorrow. Is there anybody else amongst the merchant princes that we should know?
Make a deception check. He's gonna reach over and kind of like tap your shoulder a few times, like 3 times, and just kind of like almost like consolingly. If you would like to ask Volothamp Geddarm if he can get you a dinner invitation with Wakanga Tamu, don't hesitate to ask. But don't try to bullshit a bullshitter. Of course I can get you an invite to Wakanga Tamu's with Volothamp Geddarm, because I'm eating there tonight. And he'll just kind of like um, just kind of like motion like let's go now, and kind of like stand up with that.
All right, let's go.
Should we grab Veldis?
Certainly.
So we can kind of move back around the city as we essentially walk across the city. Volo just does like a quick little chat about the different merchant princes, effectively giving you all the knowledge that each of them deals in very particular trades. All of them effectively have a monopoly over those trades within the city. To trade on the black market is inviting yourself to be punished in the executioner's run. Um, Among the many different things that can get you there is certainly pissing off a merchant prince, as they basically have unlimited authority inside of the town. And among the different things that they exercise that on is also effectively no promulgation of laws. They have the ability to make a law, and if they want to tell you about it ahead of time, sure, they could. But in the long run, they can make a law, you can break it, and then they can punish you for it, and you've never even heard about it. So it's one of those things where he's kind of warning you, like, these are people who execute the highest authority in this city, and among that is basically cross me and die. But he shares that among the different merchant princes, you have Akin Afa, tends to deal in weaponry, traveling gear. In general, it's kind of like your typical like adventuring gear. He pretty much does all of that. So anybody who sells anything in the city, like when you bought clothes, when you bought the armor, he got a kickback from that. He tells you about Ifan Talaro, deals in beasts and basically training stuff. So anything from like briding to the actual beasts themselves, if they are sold, he gets a kickback from it. Jessamine deals in plants, poisons, and assassinations. Um, Joe Ball deals in guides and mercenaries. Quayoth deals in fruit, wine, ales, tej, oil, perfumes, and insect repellents. So Jarek, you would actually, when he starts to talk about Quayoth, that would be one of those things where, let me actually get an intelligence from you.
Sure.
Quality. um, so that's why you never ask for a roll when you don't want it to fail. I think it's going to be the type of thing where it's like tip of your tongue kind of feeling, but like with memory recall, you've heard that name before, and as he goes on describing it, on some level you're connecting the dots in your head that this has got to be the merchant prince that is related to your previous life. But it's not necessarily connecting a whole lot of dots at this point. In general, it's almost like oh, it's not tip of the tongue. There's a word for it. It's deja vu. You're getting kind of like that deja vu sensation where it's like, I feel like I've heard that name before. Um, I guess even deja vu's not quite it either, but it's that odd kind of feeling almost.
Yeah, and I'm trying to like recall it, but at the same time, he's like I feel like Volo is like he's just like a constant stream of stuff, and just like kind of before it can hit my mind, it's like he's just like pushed out by all the other stuff he's talking about as we're walking along.
Constant stream of stuff, and it's also the most like word vomity person ever, because every third word is probably his name at any given point. Especially walking through the street, he's the type of person who like he's sharing all of this information while you guys are basically walking from the Red Bazaar past the Temple of Saloon up the actual like kind of figure eight, and you're walking like up towards the Golden Hall. So this whole long ass walk, he's saying his name every third word, of course, because it's Volothamp Geddarm. And he's basically looking at everybody and he's saying, yes, yes, that's right. You're looking at Volo. And then he's like nodding to somebody else and he's talking to every single person you guys walk by in a city of 1,000 people that you're walking by, as well as basically just vomiting out this information as he goes. But yeah, you guys essentially would not get a word in edgewise pretty much any time you were around this character. And then yeah, he goes over what Kanga deals in magic and lore, as well as Xanthi is gems, jewelry, cloth, and armor. So yeah, I guess that one actually does weapons and shields. And then it's all the rest of the traveling gear. And then Xanthi is like the cloth and armor. So really your kickbacks would have gone towards Xanthi. And let's see, let's give this a roll to Vola. As he actually goes over it, he does share that Xanthi is one of the few people who is actually from the old nobility, and her ascension into one of the merchant prince positions was that on some level when they kicked out the people of she was, it's like that weird level of, it was almost like American Revolution, like some of those first people were effectively traitors while other people were loyalists, who were the ones who were effectively then became redcoats and kind of with history being written became the traitors. She kind of picked the right side, but a lot of people, and he's kind of like sharing this like on that like level of like, don't ever bring this up, but a lot of people understand and look at her as the old nobility, and she's a dangerous person for it. She's in a dangerous position for it, because a lot of people constantly fear that she's the one person who doesn't belong in this place, that has thrown away the idea of nobility. Now we live in a place that's free, and anybody can become a merchant prince. And I think that's probably about where you guys will eventually arrive at Wakanka's place. And he will kind of invite you into a house that is not his. And he'll nod to some of the guards and he'll give them names. And you can tell the guards are like, what the fuck? That's not my name. Like they have those looks over their face as he just kind of walks by. He's like the type of person who does like the pistol point, where he's like, hey, yeah, you're looking at Volo. It's good to see you today, Bob. And the guy's like, Bob's not even a fucking Chaltish name. And he just kind of like walks on through, but you also very quickly, the guards are not stopping him. You know, on some point, he does actually belong in this place. Until eventually he's going to walk you all into kind of like an open sunroom, where you're kind of just sitting in an atrium inside of this garden that has like tiny little pebbles paving like little walking courses through the garden. And he's just going to sit down on a couch and he kind of reclines, and you just see as he starts to kind of snap his fingers, eventually calling a servant over and tells them like, whenever Wakanda Otamu is ready to see Volothamp Geddarm, you can tell him that Volothamp Geddarm is here, and I've brought 3 friends, and he's just going to say your names to the person, and he's going to point, Ray, Tyler, and Sita? Yep, you can just let him know, and he'll see us whenever he's ready. And he just reclines back. You guys would notice he's never asked for your name so far.
Yeah, so Jarek's definitely a bit bemused at all this kind of like whirlwind stuff that's happened, like finding themselves in the meeting Volo and then going to the the merchant princes, and he probably like as Volo was as they were on the walk, and he was describing kind of like the sort of arbitrary rule of the merchant princes. I guess Jarek would have been trying to hide like kind of his distaste for that idea, um, and then just like kind of as he like is coming in and seeing like presumably the like really sort of ornate and I mean, I don't know if it's ostentatious, but like ornate, and then like having seen sort of like the outside of like the sort of like the hovels out in Malar's throat, and that he would kind of he'd be feeling uncomfortable, but he'd be doing his best to kind of hide it. Like,
Yeah, so like where Chalt is bright and colorful, the merchant princes take that to a whole another level. So like where you guys walk into like the like entrance of one of these merchant princes' homes, and first experience like just the first room of Wakandu's house is about 3 to 4 times the size of what you saw like families were living in Malar's throat. And this first room is simply just the double doors lead into a hall with 2 doors on each side, like east and or north and south of you. And then there's a single door straight ahead of you to the east. And this room is basically 30 feet long, 10 feet wide, like 10 feet in front of you to that door to the east, and it's just empty. It's simply just a initial room before you actually enter into like this kind of garden area. Um, and that's the first thing that you do is walk into this room, and yeah, it's 3 times the size of some of those homes that you saw in the hovels. This place is actually built of like fine stucco work, whereas a lot of those hovels you can see it's very much like anything that is remotely sturdy is used to make a house. And you right now, what you guys probably looked at those hovels like 2 hours ago, kind of thing. You are right now seeing like the most fine, wonderful things, and it is a 100% clash to what you would experience in Malar's throat.
yeah, so kind of under his breath, Jarek like looking around at all this, just like good to be a prince, I guess. And then he'll kind of stand around, sort of like a little uneasily, kind of, and like kind of like occasionally like glancing at himself, and kind of he's kind of common clothing, and like just feels very out of place, but sort of kind of just standing there, not really sure what to do with himself, or while they're waiting for this merchant prince to uh, arrive.
Cinder there?
Wait, what was that?
Is Cinder there?
Oh, Syndra. At present, you guys are just kind of in like a solo room. Eventually, as time kind of goes by, eventually, like the first thing that's going to happen is that servant is going to bring 3 wines out to you all. But effectively, as far as things go right now, it's just the 3 of you in this room. You can see servants at all of the doors who are just kind of just standing, and their job is pretty much to ignore you until you call for them.
Nice. Thank you for the wine. So great. Jarek, this is great.
Who do you say thank you to the wine to? Is that to Vola?
To the servant.
The servant kind of like looks at you in like a moment of shock, and then very quietly says, "You are most welcome." And they kind of nod their head a little bit. I think I saw my mic pick that up, but they basically very coyly, very quietly acknowledge and say you are most welcome, and do like the slightest little bit of a bow to you, but like they are trying to show like no reaction. You can roll an insight check. You very quickly understand that like their job is to be like invisible, and you like shocked this person by acknowledging their existence.
Well, every person has worth. Thank you, dear. So I'm going to enjoy this wine because I think it's probably pretty good.
What time did you say dinner was, Volo?
If you're hungry now, I'm sure we would be more than welcome to enjoy a bite to eat. As far as I understand, these merchant princes live well enough that their cooks pretty much prepare about 7 to 8 meals per meal, just in case they bring it out, and at the time, they're not actually hungry.
Seems a bit of a waste to me.
Well, clearly you have not been accustomed to the life that Volothamp, Geddarm, or these wonderful merchant princes live. There's a little bit more to life than appreciating the wasteful parts. Life's gonna end pretty quickly. It's time to enjoy yourself.
The Jack will kind of give like a strained smile at that, and um, I suppose.
So he's just sitting there, sipping and enjoying his wine. As you all kind of look around, there's like active fountains that are just kind of like bubbling up fresh water inside of these rooms. And eventually you start to hear footsteps coming from the north of you. And eventually you see as an older gentleman, big old kind of bushy gray beard, just kind of walks out, and eventually he kind of looks to you all, and he sees Volothamp kind of recline there, and he'll just kind of nod to him. Volothamp, it is a pleasure to see you today. And Volo's just going to jump up very quickly, like moving over to him, give him a big old hug, and just kind of say to Otamu, well, Otamu, of course you're excited to see me. Everybody's excited to see Volothamp Geddarm. And Wakanda kind of like just looks at him, and he's just like shakes his head with the slightest bit of movement, and he'll kind of look over to you all, and you've brought guests with you. Please don't hesitate to introduce me to your guests, Volo. And you very quickly see as he's like calling Volothamp out, he 100% knows Volo has no clue what your names are, and he wants Volo to like connect the dots. This guy already, you'll have the perception, has a much deeper appreciation for people than perhaps Volo will ever have.
Pleased to meet you, Otomo Wakanga. Really thrilled, and the wine is fantastic. The place, amazing.
And Jack will just kind of he'll introduce himself, just sort of like with like a kind of a more kind of cordial, not friendly nod, and just be like and like kind of pointing to himself like Jarek, kind of before, as like after like maybe a moment before Volo actually answers, he'll take it on himself to give his own name.
Yeah, so Volo just kind of stands there, like, not even really connecting the dots that he's supposed to be doing something here. He's, like, in a state between, like, catatonic and just dumbfounded. And when Wakanga goes up to you all, he's going to reach out his right hand, palm up, to shake your hand. And then when you do shake, he's going to put his left hand over your hand and give you like a two-handed shake as he bows, probably about like a 30-degree bow towards you. And you just see as he's very much a different character, very much a different kind of world from where Volo comes to, and already you're going to perceive like a different level of um, hubris. I feel like hubris, where he might not be the same person as like his surroundings puts on. And as he kind of comes forward, he's going to kind of, bow to Yarick, and he's going to. Did you actually say your name is Island?
No, I didn't, but I will.
So yeah, when he comes to you after you say that, he's going to kind of do the same shake for you, and as he bows, he's going to remain bowed as he kind of progresses into. I would be more than happy to give you a cask of Quaios' finest. Who may I send it to? And he remains bowed.
You'd send it to Island Macater at the Thundering Lizard. We would be so pleased to have it.
Island, it would be a most welcome pleasure of mine to share this fine wine with you. And he's just going to kind of raise one of his right hand up into the air, and you'll see kind of around the room all of the different people seem to kind of snap to attention. That they've almost been like waiting for this. And as he kind of looks around, he just says, Amphalos, please do me the pleasure of finding one of Quaios' finest casks. Perhaps and he kind of like looks you over and kind of judges you for a moment. Perhaps the 1472 vintage. And send it over to, and this is where a little bit's going to shine through, where he takes a moment to think of it. The Thunderous Lizard in the Red Bazaar, and leave it there for Island and me, the person saying the name, does not have your last name prepared, but Wakanga would actually repeat your last name.
I'm going to bow and say thank you to Wakanga. So generous. Thank you so much. What a welcome.
You are most certainly welcome. And he'll essentially do the same thing for Valdis, but I don't actually want to necessarily rob Chris of having his own introduction with Wakanga.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean like back when we were at the tavern to like drag him along if he wanted to do his like entertainment. It was kind of just more asking in character rather than saying we should bring him with us. So apologies if that kind of messed anything up.
I think in general, one of the biggest things is it's just a difference of if Chris has a chance to watch the video in hindsight, I don't think it bothers anything to have him along. If he doesn't have a chance to watch it, I think it's a perfect excuse that he basically stays behind to play the actual occasion there. And that's kind of the big difference how I see it, is writing him out of the story works if he's not able to. And I don't know if Chris has a lot of free time. I feel like his free time is kind of spent judiciously.
Yeah. We can leave it up to him how he wants to. Yeah.
Wakanga, we heard so much from Volo with a little wink and maybe a bit of sarcasm. We heard so much from Volo about all the merchant princes and their various areas here in the port, but we didn't hear so much about what you do. Is it food and drink?
He looks over to Volo. Volo, surely you did not forget my expertise. And Volo's just going to kind of look back to him. Volothamp Geddarm would never forget you. And would kind of look back to you and is like, I deal in the magical variety. I control any given magical items that might go through this land. In particular, the only items that don't come exclusively from me are levied through me. So on occasion, you may be able to find a Kinafa selling some magical weapons or shields. But if she has an enchantment, I assure you, it's my work that has done far more than the mundane creation of such things. But I'm not keen, and he's looking back over at Volo, on talking about myself. First and foremost, I am a student of knowledge. And that is where Volothamp and myself get along most fantastically. We are both interested in the lore of the world, and I just so happen to be the person in these lands that Volo has learned the most from.
Hmm. Well, we certainly have a lot to learn about being in Cholt, and we really appreciate your hospitality.
Oh, when have you arrived? Where do you come from? Please, if I may, do you enjoy the garden setting of the atrium? Would you care to come recline with us on a couch? Where would you enjoy to sit?
I think I might, after spending so many years in caves and underground, I might be uncomfortable on a couch. How about you, Jarek?
One seat is much like another, with all due respect to me.
All right, so a couch it is, I guess. Let's go sit on a couch. We've just come in from Waterdeep. It's been a long, long day.
Oh, excellent. Waterdeep is a fantastic city. Volo had been asking me to go there for many a year before I finally took the effort to snap my fingers and arrive. So, tell me, how was your ride here? What boats did you come on? Did you come together? Did you enjoy the sea? How do you like being here in Schultz? Tell me everything.
Well, I mean, honestly, we got here in nearly a moment, and we arrived with someone you may know. Syndra brought us just this morning.
Oh, really, Volothamp, you dog. You didn't tell me they were friends of mine. Well, most intriguing. Perhaps. And he's just going to kind of stop as he's walking you all to the north there, to that kind of tea room with the 4 couches. And he kind of like looks to the nearest person. Ajax, would you mind heading up to Syndra, see how she's feeling, and perhaps we can entertain with her? So he'll then kind of move forward, and as he goes to open the doors, you just see as the doors ahead of you open, and the double doors just shine into this area where you have basically like an open view of the actual backyard gardens of his villa. And then there's 4 couches inside of there. All of them are, I feel like satans are the way of saying it's like 3/4 of a couch. Like there's one side that you can kind of recline on, or sit up with back support, and then otherwise it's almost like an attached ottoman. But it's like kind of like a very like reclining, friendly kind of couch. In general, I feel like this is kind of like a Greek kind of setting where everything is very much like this is leisure at its finest. And he'll just kind of head in and sort of like motion for each of you to pick a seat. And once everybody's seated, he's just going to find the other couch and he'll sit on it.
Oh, so beautiful. Your home is amazing. And such a view. I'm glad that Syndra is recovering from the trip. It was hard on her.
There's a lot to be said with recovering. That is not necessarily true. You will find Syndra's situation is a bit more dire, and he kind of pauses for a moment. Well, yes, her situation is perhaps more dire than simply recovering.
Well, we're certainly concerned, and that's why we made the trip with her. We have a lot of work to do to try to find a solution.
So, do tell me, have you all thought about heading to see Joe Ball? Are you interested in hiring a guide? Have you thought about heading directly into the jungle and trying to find what may be found?
We've familiarized ourselves a bit with some of the guides. I'm not sure we know yet where we're headed. Tell us more about Joe Ball.
Shardusa, do be a dear and run on over to Joe Ball and see if he will set you up with a complete guidebook to his current guides. See if we can get these gentlemen set up with his finest, if you might. And you'll see as a servant, like in one of the corners, kind of steps out of the shadow, bows to him, and then just kind of like scurries off. You're very quickly noticing if there's 4 corners in a room, there's 4 servants who are standing by. And he kind of just looks back to you. Joe Ball has his own little work with mercenaries as well as guides, and if you're looking to head into the jungle, if you're prepared to hire somebody, he's the one that you have to go through. But otherwise, he's a fine enough fellow.
So we'd heard some people discussing some sort of papers or that are needed to travel through the jungles. Is that something Joe Bowles guides handle as well?
Well, that depends. Baldur's Gate has its own ways of doing things, and the people of Fort Balarian are not necessarily cooperating with our ways. If you mean to speak of their extortive means, then yes, there is paperwork that you need to pay for. If you intend to satisfy Jobel, You need only pay his guides their asking price. I believe his guides all charge the same. I think they're 5 gold paid up front per day for a 30-day period, regardless of the expedition time. And, of course, Joe Ball takes his cut from that. Part of the upfront is that he must be paid before the expedition goes out. It would be a shame if a guide were to have their legs broken because they don't pay their bills.
And Wakanga, where would you suggest we go? Like, what must we see as we try to help Syndra?
There's much to the jungles of Chult that is beyond most of us who live here. Very few people return, and that's where many of the guides shine. Their brightest. To give you a suggestion. Well, you'll have to excuse me. If I'm to head to one of my libraries, I can't simply send somebody to look. Give me a few moments, and I'll return shortly. And he's going to step up, and it's right around when Oyax kind of returns. Syndra is still resting, my lord. If she can remain in her privacy, she believes she'll be well enough to entertain tomorrow. And before he leaves, Wakanga will kind of just turn around and he'll just kind of look to you all. Well, it appears it will be dinner for 4. Please don't hesitate to tell me when you are ready. At present, though, perhaps after I grab this from the library. But just... And he puts up a single finger as he kind of steps away.
Jarek will nod to Wakanga, and he'll turn back towards Island, and then sort of like cognizant of the servant still in the room, he'll lower his voice, and just to like, seems a decent enough fellow.
Oh, I like him very much. Volo, what can you tell us about Omamu? And I pull out my medallion and show it to Volo.
So this whole time, Volo would have been squirming around, clearly having no joy in a conversation that is not about him. And he would just be, you could clearly see, like, incredibly uncomfortable. But as you grab the medallion and show it off to him, he kind of looks it over and, oh, well, that is quite interesting. You said you've just arrived here today.
Oh, I have. I've had this in Waterdeep for years. And I've always dreamed of traveling here to visit, but I know almost nothing about it. There's very little written and very, very little said.
Omamu has been a city long spoken about among Chaltons. Many people here in Nyanzaru would just as likely deny its existence as much as agree that it is here. As far as most know, it's lost to the jungle. We, in the know, are actually worried that Rosni has it somewhere in the center of his lost undead. that perhaps him finding it was a part of his own death so long ago. But it's hard to tell, as there's so many stories that are for or against, contrary of one another. But from what we understand is Omamu was once the house of the old gods. And when the jungle took it back, consumed the city, destroyed its people, all knowledge of it has been lost. Nobody escaped. Even Volothamp Geddarm wouldn't go to Omamu. If you got that story, I would be happy to steal it from you.
And would you pay for it?
You are a delight, my friend. Oh, you should look for a career in comedy, Remnus. You are hilarious.
Well, it's only the wit of my esteemed audience that makes it all work. So, I guess I'm kind of waiting for Wakanga to come back.
Yeah, well, you asked the perfect question that kept me from actually finding the journal, because I had to look for a moment. So just give me a moment. I'll be right back with y'all. If you guys need to take a break, that's perfectly fine. I feel like I have a handout for that journal that he's going to give you. Otherwise, I just have to convert over a bit of the text for myself to where I can leave it as a handout.
Cool. I'll take a break for a minute. Justin, do you have any agenda with these people?
So Jarek has, like, his background is he worked kind of tangentially for somebody who worked with one of the merchant princes, but that's not anything he's like shared, because he kind of left that employment on not so good terms. I think he mentioned that kind of vaguely in their first meeting with Syndra. But like as a main thing, he wants to try and kind of, like, as he was saying, like, help the, you know, sort of figure out what's going on with this death curse and help when he can. So he'll probably, um, he might have some questions for Wakango about that during their dinner. But I mean, Jarek's kind of, he's kind of a man of few words. If you've picked up on that, so I'm trying to kind of play him a little more reticent than like I played Justin.
Fair enough. I'm playing slightly less reticent than Burke, I suppose.
I like talkative characters because I hate talking constantly.
Well, we're all getting a turn to be the chatty one.
I mean, I can make Jarek more talkative. I don't want to have too much have you have to fill up too much dead space. So.
Well, one of my problems with anything that reduces the communication is we are literally working in a thing where all we have is communication. It's part of why I do not like the bird people who can only repeat stuff, because anything you do to reduce the communication only makes everything that much more terrible. Um, so while I understand a certain level of being in character, on some level, the actual conversations has to be a part of it. So finding ways to talk regularly, but using less words makes sense just as much. And that's one of those things where sometimes it's best to narrate things, to say, I'm going to ask this question, um, but obviously Jarek says it as a man of few words. You know what I mean? Like there's levels like that where I feel like we have to kind of find that balance because input is huge.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I meant. Like not that like he's never going to talk, but just like when he does, like he tries to be kind of he tends to be more use fewer words to say things. Not that like he never talks. So
Yeah, and I just think that's the big difference, though. Players who talk on a regular basis is what makes this game great. If I cannot narrate on a regular basis, that makes things like slightly more ideal. It's hard to actually say that in the long run, but like the best situations tend to be where the players are riffing off of each other, and when they come to stuff that they need an actual like setting question about, they then approach me. Because one, it allows me to actually keep with the flow of the players in the same way as like asking for one thing that gets something from Wakanda doesn't mean that I'm now free to talk as Volo as much as you want that to happen. Like to ask what Omamu is just one of those things. If I had just rolled a one and be like, Volo doesn't know a damn thing about Omamu, it would have been easier to come up with the solution that Wakangu is doing. But it's one of those things where, like, when you guys chill in taverns and you talk about what you want to do with, I like design the situations to like end with those results. Um, and that's where like having one player lead a party is good because there's a leader, but having the whole party participating is the best. So going without an actual handout. At some point, Wakanga is going to return to you all with a small scroll kind of grasped in his hand. And he's going to kind of look to you all and he'll just ask, Sindra and I had been working on a map for quite some time, I believe she's furnished you all with. And he just kind of looks around for whoever who essentially would be holding this map. And eventually, once you pull it out, he'll kind of like look over things for a second, and he very gently unrolls the scroll to where you can see like inside of it is actually a small piece of parchment that is just kind of within the actual scroll work. And he kind of reads over it for a moment, and he just kind of comes to it where he's says, well, this bit of a journal was from a explorer brought out of the jungle some 15 years ago. It describes a wizard's exploration of a few various places. It hasn't quite been enough detail to be able to figure out where they are. The author does speak, however, of his traveling companion, Vorn, and he's kind of like looks for Camp Vengeance, and he kind of like starts to measure like a certain area. He actually like pulls out a little caliper and kind of extends the caliper, and he like checks like a little triangular motion, and you see as he like calculates the hypotenuse in his head and like adjusts the caliper to it, and he basically triangulates that position from like where Camp Vengeance is, and basically shows you where Vorn is expected to be on locations that he knows, before he then checks it against where they have Camp Righteous drawn as well. And he does kind of the same three-step process where he triangulates it over to it and then checks it against Camp Vengeance, Camp Righteous, and the location of Vorn before he kind of confirms a little bit more properly. And then he kind of like adjusts onto the map where he writes down basically that this is where you can expect to find this wizard's traveling companion, Vorn. And he kind of goes over the journal a little bit more. Let's see. Ooh, a picture of Vorn's control amulet. I guess I should have that somewhere. Let me find that to share with things I had prepared. Everything but what you guys are going for. NPCs I was prepared to introduce you to. Volo is going to be the end of the session.
Sorry about that.
I take it we're crushing it then, right?
Well, I expected the session mostly to be about the guides, but it's definitely a good introduction to the actual princes, who are a great resource. But like, for instance, we didn't even get to the second set of rumors that you guys would have picked up on. Rolling that, I mean, it was the initial 20, where it's like, you overhear somebody talking, of course it's fucking Volo, because he's essentially just a bar fiend. So they don't really give a picture of the control amulet. I don't really think there's a particular reason to have a picture necessarily of it. So I guess at that point, it's simply just understanding that there is this, what is he? He's a shield guardian. Is what Vorn actually is, and the control amulet is what you need to actually operate him. And basically, this is simply a resource that clues you all into that, from Wakanga's perspective, what he has to offer for you is that if you are able to find this control amulet and then return to where Vorn is, you can gain control of Vorn, and Vorn has information about these places that the wizard once visited.
I didn't really follow what a control amulet is.
It's just something specific to Shield Guardians. When you create the construct, the control amulet is the person who controls the creature. So Vorn is like a metallic being that without the amulet just maintains. It doesn't really do anything in particular. It will defend itself and like essentially kill anybody who bothers it. But on some level, Vorn is essentially useless without the actual control amulet. And effectively what it ends up being is if you can return Vorn to Wakanga, he will reward you all from that point. In particular, I'm just going to let you all know, he's a wizard. He's going to offer you all a spell book. So it might not necessarily be of the utmost priority, but it may increase the bit of the information that he can then share with you all once he is able to get information out of Vorn. But that's what he has to offer when you ask him what he can tell you about the central portions of Chult, because this map that you guys have access to is what he can tell you about the central portions of Chult. He only knows what people have been able to explore, and most people have not been able to actually get inland, because once you go into the jungle, you don't come back. A lot of the guides say they've been into the jungle. A lot of guides come back without the people they're guiding.
And so this control amulet that's supposed to be near Camp Vengeance, or is that where Vorn is? I apologize. I wasn't clear
This
on that.
position here, this is Vorn's location. I've not seen anything that tells us the control amulet itself is there, actually.
Ah, understood. Thank you.
Any last locations for the wizard, or a name for the wizard that Vorn worked with?
Last, the journal itself doesn't seem to have any name.
Well, can you tell us anything about Camp Righteous? It seems like that'd be our first stop on the way, right?
Camp Righteous fell some time ago. And I believe he can go into Camp Righteous and Camp Vengeance are Shield Dwarf strongholds. I believe Camp Righteous fell within like the last 20 or so years. And Camp Vengeance is their newest position that they've started to build up in an attempt to eventually retake Camp Righteous as well. But it's one of those reminders where, again, being in the jungle is incredibly unsafe. Oh, no, my bad. It's not Shield Dwarves. That's actually the Order of the Gauntlet. Operates out of Camp Righteous. It fell, and they've created since then Camp Vengeance.
And did this camp fall to the undead? What overran it?
I am not actually as aware as to what took them. If the Order of the Gauntlet is a little bit more free with their presence, if You may be able to find some of them at Port Nyanzaru at any given point. They may be a little bit more open to sharing about it, but I think you may find it's simply going to be where they respond that it's fallen. Yeah, and they called it a couple of months ago.
Is there anyone from the Order of the Gauntlet you could introduce us to, or where would we find them?
I, in particular, don't have contacts myself. I could see around, but I don't really venture too much into the city. I have to maintain a certain air of aloofness, unavailability.
Of course.
I
Of course.
imagine perhaps Aiken Afa may have more contact with them, given his line of trade, weapons and such.
He may certainly have a contact within the Order. I don't know how much they're buying Cholton weapons or armor, though. When the Order comes, they tend to come well equipped, and that's one of those interesting points where we don't really bother people who come here with things. We look to stop the sale on black markets. And as well, we're not going to go to war with the Order of the Gauntlet.
I see. Well, we'll keep an eye out for one of their representatives. Thank you for the information. Most helpful.
Well, Congo, what other things are you interested in from the jungle? You know, I'm an archaeologist. I expect to come back with medallions like this one I have around my neck that I'm trying to understand. And what are things are you looking for?
I don't look too deeply into the jungle. I don't care to find the death that it has to respond with. But when folk do go there, I am more than always interested in finding those who might acquire magical items lost to time. Wizards who have properly protected their spell books is always an intriguing thing to me. And I have my inclination between friends like Syndra, as well as others cursed with the ailment of this time, to try to find and solve whatever it is that is bring this dark grasp of death to our land. If that amulet is true, it leads towards our long-lost city of Omamu. Many people are looking for it. Some say they've been there. Untrustworthy people. But in general, there's many things that are out there that I'm interested in. I'm just not sure sending you after them is wise. And I don't often ask people to risk their lives, so much as I'm perfectly happy to reward you if you are able to find anything of value.
Well, we've made a commitment to Syndra to risk our lives, so that decision is passed. And any help you can provide, we certainly could use.
What, pray, do you think I've been doing? This is everything I can help you with.
Well, we really so appreciate that. Seems like the Order of the Gauntlet is the right direction. You know for sure, with your contacts and your control over magic in the city, that this shield amulet certainly isn't here in the port, right?
If somebody had the control amulet here, it would be perfectly possible for them to hide it. If I were to find out that there were sales of such magical items, I would have some cause. But the black market is strong, and it's impossible to be sure. Predominantly what I deal in is the creation of new magics, not necessarily old magic. Anybody with the power to enchant or to create, on some level they are in my employ or have to pay me for the right to operate.
All right. Well, perhaps we'll check the black market if we can, and we'll tell you if we find anything, because you certainly want to know, right?
Be wary. Simply attending to any of the black market sales is just as dangerous as not. I, if I am to associate with you, would recommend you keep away from such things.
Well, we certainly don't want to compromise our association with you, because this has certainly been the best night we've had in a long time. Am I right, Jack?
Certainly been nice, and you've been quite helpful with your information, quite forthcoming. So I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And should we happen to come across this amulet and able to find Vorn, we will certainly keep you in mind for anything else we come across in our travels. And do, um, when you speak to Syndra, tell her we're um, sorry to have missed her this evening, and hope she is feeling a bit better tomorrow.
So at some point, one of his. God, that looks wrong to me. One of his servants, I did not underline that name to reuse it again, is going to come back with some of the flyers from Joe Ball. And I feel like the book actually has an error because of something that I know about these characters, so I am going to share the ones that I think Joe Ball recommends that you search between.
Shardusa brought those back.
So when they get back, when Shardusa gets back from Joe Ball's, those are the 6 guides that are currently registered with him and not out on expedition. And they're the ones effectively that currently are up for hire. Some of those are repeats, but at least at this point, those are effectively what you all have. And you would know that those are effectively also the guides that you can hire out of the Port of Nyanzaru right now. But you all can sit down, take dinner, and enjoy a meal with Wakanga. When you all do attend to dinner, you see that they have like 5 different like pigs that are effectively like roasted, and you can see as they like have this table is just loaded with food, far more than 5 people could actually eat. Um, and they basically, as they carve each of these different pig roasts, you can see that all of them were started at different times. So there are like every like kind of temperature that you would want something cooked to is like represented in how these are actually cut before you. And again, this is one of those examples of it very clearly says looking for the perfect meal is what they're going for, far more than worrying about what they're going to waste.
Yeah, so Jarek would again kind of do his he kind of you know um this idea of like the waste is kind of like grates on him a bit, but he would Wakanga's been a good host, so he would do his best to sort of disguise that and thank him for the meal and you know eat his fill. Maybe sort of taking a look throughout at some of these flyers that the servant brought back. Um, Probably his attention would be most caught by the one for Aku or Iku, but he would kind of just be looking them over, kind of keeping his thoughts to himself until maybe after the meal when he'll have a chance to discuss it with the others.
Are any of these known to you personally, Wakanga?
Lass, if you are interested in speaking about the guides, you will have to seek out Jailball for yourself. I myself do not venture outside of these lands. I have very little interest in it. My work is all-consuming.
Well, you have a beautiful city here, and I can imagine wanting to stay inside of it. There's plenty to do, I'm sure. Dinner's been amazing, and I think we have a performance. Would you like to come and see our colleague perform at the Thunderous Lizard?
So, assuming Um, we'll have to find out how this plays out. Like, I'm basically going to ask Chris whether he wanted to have come along with this or whether he stayed behind. But this is 100% taking place when Chris would have been playing. So Valdez is either ghosting on his performance and is going to have a pissed off bartender waiting for him, or Valdez is there playing and not here. And that's going to be his decision. But you guys would rightly know at this point you have at least missed most of his performance for that evening, as it's getting on through the night. And 100% when you say that to Wakanga, he's going to kind of chuckle to you and he's like, no, thank you. You are most kind for inviting me. But I assure you, if I'm listening to music, they'll come to me.
So when Island asks Wakango about the guides and sort of after Wakango says like he doesn't really know them personally, Jarek would maybe turn to Volo and say, Volo, you seem to know everybody. I imagine you've met some of these fellows yourself. Any impressions you can give us?
I've tried to question as many as the guides as Volo is able to, and I've been able to get a hold of quite a few of them. I was a big fan of Cena there. She was quite delightful. I really enjoyed what she had to say. It was exactly what Volothamp was looking for.
Jarek's gonna kind of like almost like squint a little and like kind of like cock his head at the name and then kind of be like, yeah, of course, Volo. Thank you.
Game certainly recognizes game, right? Volo, are you coming back to the bar with us? We may stop at the temple, though. That's also something that we need to do tonight.
I'm not sure what you could possibly care for in a temple, but I believe there's a good chance that you may find Volothamp at the bar this evening. And he's just gonna kind of like pat his belly for a little bit, reclines back a little, and kind of looks up towards the sky. And you can see he's trying to think, wonder how much I'm gonna drink tonight.
Perhaps we'll see you there then. And Wakango, again, thank you for your hospitality.
You are more than welcome. It has been a pleasure to meet some friends of Sindra and Volothamp. One more time. What were their names again? My mind seems to have slipped my memory, and I just wanted to say goodbye by name. And Volo just kind of like starts a little bit up, and you can see that as he like moves a little bit too quickly, he almost vomits on himself. And Wakanga kind of looks back to you all, and in quick, rather silent nods to you all, thanks you all by name, like in kind of like a whisper kind of way. And then he kind of responds to you all in general. And when Sindra is feeling better, I will perhaps see if you are still in Nyanzaru at that point, and perhaps we can once again come together. Otherwise, if we miss you before you set off on your expedition, I wish you the best. Be safe, and for everything it is worth, return alive.
Thank you, sir. It's great to have a friend like you here in the port. And I'll make a gesture of a blessing of saloon and try to find the door.
Jarek might kind of try and like awkwardly bow, kind of like Wakango did when he first greeted them, because he's not really sure of the custom, but he would sort of trying to be kind of like formal, and then, with Island, I guess go to leave once the farewells are finished. And at this point, he would be going, if Island intends to go to the temple, he would be going with him rather than turning immediately to the tavern.
Yeah, let's just go see my people for a minute, and we'll take a look at the moon. I'm sure it's beautiful.
Like once they were away from the, out of the merchant prince and sort of heading back down, Jarek would he'd make a comment about sort of, Wakango seemed nice, but like sort of like kind of a disbelieving statement about like all that wealth, and then like kind of like just like with a gesture kind of encompassing like the stuff outside the walls, like hard to imagine such discrepancy or such wealth amidst such poverty.
Yeah, there's certainly a puzzle there to unlock. I think we'll understand it better later. Volo, on the other hand, whew, he's a handful.
A character, to be sure.
How'd you like to go out in the jungle with him, huh?
It would be interesting.
I look forward to the day we can buy his books and his silence, perhaps.
Part of me does wonder just how much of those books are accurate. He seems a bit of a grandiose fellow.
Yeah, well, I'm not thinking he's seen a whole lot of those monsters himself.
But an entertaining fellow, to be sure.
All right, so let's check in at the temple. I should report it and let them know I'm here.
Certainly, after you. And Jarek would follow along with him.
And I march off quite confidently because, I made notes on the map, so I feel like I know where I'm going.
So you all can progress to the temple, entering on in through massive, like ivory white doors. You see inside the main area is a large atrium that basically has kind of like four different buildings that are almost flanking, creating walls. Inside of most of this space is open to the air. And what is it? We've got you all the 15th. Yeah, so you're on a full moon right now. Um, Looking up to the sky, you see moon's probably about like 30 to 50 degrees kind of to the east. It's still rising, so it's still early in the night, but you can kind of gather it's probably about like 9 to 10 p.m. at this point. Um, well along the path of Saloon. Inside of this area, though, there is a massive fountain in the center, and it's just kind of like a beautiful display of like water jets that are just creating incredible like shapes and um, like it's like they're designed and used through magic to create a lot of different like creatures almost like jumping through the water, and all of these things are kind of shining through the moonlight. Inside of the temple, a lot of people are actually essentially like outside in prayer, but you can also see that the temple can open up to actually present like the actual like craftspeople, smiths, and artisans um, to the public where they might actually sell stuff like at other points. But overall, what would you actually like to accomplish inside of the temple?
Well, first, I want you to see, is this not the most beautiful space you've seen? A saloon's almost at the pinnacle of her journey.
It is impressive, Jarek will nod.
Is there a god that you follow closely, or not so much?
I serve Lathander myself.
Well, the sun and the moon, I suppose we've got it covered between us, yeah?
Yes, I will admit I don't actually know that much about Saloon, but I would be interested in learning more from you.
Well, this is the house of the moon, as all temples of Saloon, and hopefully there's a priest around that we can check in with to let them know that I'm here uh, and on the hunt. So is there anybody that we see that looks like they would be the chief of this institution?
That's part of what I mean. Like, what do you want out of this?
Just to check in, I want to tell them I came from Waterdeep, that we're going to, conquer the jungles. Maybe see if they know anything about all the undead. Um, little check-in, little resource understanding.
Yeah, so like you can find somebody, and effectively, like these people are pretty much all um, in some state of worship. For what it's worth, certainly, yes, you can check in with somebody who seems to be a more or less head priest of this place. Um, in general, asking about the undead, they kind of have a pretty similar update for you all. Um, be weary of the jungle. Anywhere you go outside of these walls, you risk at any given point being assaulted by the undead. These would be some of the people a little bit more giving to the folk who are locked out of the city. Perhaps some of the warnings that they would give you are among the things that if you do hear the alarm sounded while you're in the old city, Malar's Throat, or the what is it, the teriyaki anchorage. That's going to be hard not to say teriyaki, especially at like a vertical like read like that. Um, he'll basically warn you that those locations, once the alarm is sounded, have moments to get inside of the city gates before those people are barred and locked outside. Sometimes it's safe enough to remove yourself to like one of the ziggurats in the old city. Much of Malar's Throat is well defensible, and the anchorage tends to have defensibility in that they are also one of the places that a lot of the wild, like the dinosaurs, are trained. So there's a lot of viability there. But effectively, if there's undead threats, they lock the gates and those people are on their own. Um, and that's one of the things. Like the Temple of Saloon is a little bit more forward with talking about how that works, not because they're necessarily against the process. They certainly enjoy the protection of being within the gates, but they're also among the people who are not necessarily okay with that. It's almost just a matter of fact. And it's also in part mostly that they would curse the very nature of Rosny as a necromancer for what he's done to this land.
Larry, were you planning to meet your sidekick here? I feel like that was one of the reasons you wanted to go to the temple.
Yeah, I thought that would happen, but maybe it's not time for that to happen today.
Well, you know I'm not going to roleplay your sidekick, so on some level, you guys having your sidekicks, that's going to be something I feel like we're, at best, you're kind of narrating your meeting. But I can't roleplay your character because that's your character.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was asking Larry, like if you wanted to kind of like just sort of have this be where you meet your guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation's with the head priest, and the conversation is we're headed out in the jungle. Could use some backup. Is there anybody that wants to come with me? Meet the sidekick. I don't even know his name, and we're ready to go. Like we'll meet up
Yeah, so
tomorrow at
I
the
mean,
gate. You know?
if you're asking for assistance, kind of like that, then yeah, you can have the priest basically. What is it? I think you went for chillin'. Oh wait, no, killin'.
Yeah, killing.
Chillin'. So yeah, at some point he will kind of gather one of their acolytes, um, and essentially you can find Killin has come forward. And this will be one of the points where, as you guys bring on these sidekicks, you will also have to be paying for them as well. So this is your fourth party member who you now, again, kind of depending on what Chris chooses to do, you'll have to get them a bed when you guys go over to the market.
Fair enough. And I think, Jarek, I think we're heading out tomorrow if we can find a guide, right?
Um, that's fine with me. So while they're in the temple, Jarek would also he would like while they're talking to the priest, he would maybe ask one of the priests like, has the temple sent out their own do they ever send out their own expeditions into the jungle, or is there um anyone specific they would suggest we talk to get more information about outside the walls?
I think you all are going to very quickly pick up that the guides are very much the weirdos who leave this place. Most people who are in Port Nyanzaru are very much of the nature where it's like, the jungle. Fuck that. Why would I go to the jungle? When you guys ask about this or when you talk about this, most people you're going to come in contact with are going to look at you like you have a death wish. like you are already a dead person walking. And that's kind of where you're going to find like the response almost universally. And that's part of why I say, like, when you ask like Wakanga about that, he's like, why would you ever leave? Why would I ever leave this place? Um, so most people, especially inside of these city gates, are living a life where at best they are trying to ignore and deny their privilege of not being in danger of death at all points. Um, but yeah, like even within the Temple of Saloon, like Killen would be the 1 in 100 who's in this place, who, when he's told, like, yeah, you're gonna be leaving these gates, is not like um, extremely hesitant to do such a thing. He sees it as a duty, but it's like he is the one person in this temple who actually sees a reason to leave it or sees some value in leaving these gates. And that's going to be a continued thing. The people in Port Nyanzaru are quite happy living off of their merchandise rather than actually having any thought towards the jungles.
Okay, so yeah, I guess my thinking was like, do they send out like, I don't know, missionaries or something? But yeah, um,
No, like if you look at the map that is furnished to you all, those points that are kind of like highlighted in like orange or like a yellow and in like an orange, those are like the condensed levels of undead in these regions. When you step away from the coasts, it's undead. And that's one of the things that this is a place of death. And all you have waiting for you as you step into the jungle is death. And that's how people see this. When they hear of an expedition into the jungle, they're, there's a reason they say, like, the guides who come back usually come back without the people they took into the jungle. It's because people go to the jungle to die.
okay. Now I'm thinking in my head of like the whatever that third zombie remake one was, where it's essentially they've got like the one with Dennis Hopper and like there's like a bunch of rich people living in this like one place surrounded by a million zombies, and then they occasionally
Oh
they
yeah,
send out like the grunts who like go out for supplies and etc. That's kind of now what I'm
that's the
thinking of.
famous zombie guy when he finally had the special effects to make the movie that he always wanted.
Yeah, George Romero. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yep, it's definitely kind of that type of thing, especially inside of the city. Yeah, I mean that's realistically perfect. His building in that movie, where he like told, I can only think of him as the devil from Spawn. But when he told his boy, like, we're a little more selective than letting you buy a house in this building. That's 100% like getting yourself inside of the gates of Nyanzaru. Everybody else who lived in that city is basically the people like locked in like the old city, Malar's Throat, and the like outer port area. Um, but yeah, that's one of the things where, like, when you talk about a religious order who is pushed out of this place, that's literally what the Order of the Gauntlet is. When they tried to establish Camp Righteous, and it fell months ago, and they've recently established Camp Vengeance. Um, that would be when you say, like, I was looking for like missionaries. That's kind of who you're searching for, is like any signs of the Order of the Gauntlet.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Cool. Well, so Kellen, nice to meet you. Why don't you meet us tomorrow at the Thundering Lizard, like early? I don't know, 8 o'clock. And we'll, because we're gonna head out.
Yeah, I mean,
If
Jarek.
you ditch him to save gold, there's going to be a chance that he does not arrive when you want him to.
How much does it cost to not ditch him, to not save gold? I don't know if he wants to sleep in the bed with me tonight. You know, it's cool if we don't do that. But how much a day is it to have a sidekick?
I mean, you guys just have to pay for their existence. I
Oh,
feel
okay.
like you guys
So
got,
we pay for their
God, I
food
think it
and
was like
boarding and stuff.
5 silver or something for the place in Thunderous Lizard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can take him with us. It's great. how does this sheet work for this guy? Like, I don't know if I understand what I'm supposed to do to have a sidekick. Never had one before.
Effectively, for where you guys are at right now, they're just like an extra body. Right now, most of what they have, if you get into battle, he is essentially just able to use his signature attack because he's going to be level 1 until you guys hit level 3. When you guys eventually make it to level 3, that's when he'll hit level 2. But they're always one level behind you all.
Okay. Well, yeah, so let's killing Jarek. Let's go see our boy back at the bar, and we'll hit this tomorrow. I mean, I assume you can't see Joe Bell until the morning, right? It's late.
Yeah, we should get a good night's rest if we're going to be heading out tomorrow. We'll want to, I assume, stop by and pick up some additional supplies, find a guide, all of that. So I agree. Yes, let's get a good night's sleep tonight, and then head out in the morning.
If you guys are still looking to meet Joe Ball tomorrow, I think it would be the type of thing where Kanga could have given you the information that um, while you had an inn today, he's going to tell you on some level, if you're trying to meet one of the merchant princes, you should know that it is our typical state to be busy, regardless of whether I'm doing anything. I have to have the air of inaccessibility. If you must meet with Joe Ball, you should expect for a 30-minute conversation to wait for approximately 4 to 6 hours at his door.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking like we would meet directly with one of the guides tomorrow, not rather than trying to go and speak with Joe Ball. But
Yeah, and that's kind of the trade-off. If you guys are able to find, you said you were looking at Eku. If you are going to attempt to look for Eku, that is going to be one thing. But that again, you guys had an interesting inn to get. That's again part of why I didn't actually present anything or prepare necessarily to have you all meeting him. I was going to wait for Sindra to feel well enough to invite you all there, which was certainly not going to be that day. And that was part of the idea, is you're in with the merchant princes, you guys got away easy having Volothamp. As far as things go, they effectively, the way to meet them is to go to the, it's called like the Golden Temple. I can't think of it offhand right now. But effectively to go there, and you basically wait for, again, like 4 to 6 hours, that you basically like wait to have this appointment, and you're basically told they're busy. They'll see you as soon as they're available. And with the inn for Mukanda, he basically tells you the best you're ever going to get on a meeting is waiting most of the day to see this person for a short conversation.
right, it's like tromping up to like the court, like when the king or whoever holds court like once a month or something, and everybody goes and they just kind of you wait until you're called, and then they at some point they come out and say, okay, come back tomorrow or
100% though.
Or next month.
yeah. So maybe heading out tomorrow might be a little. We might have to take a little more time to try and find a guide, but
Well, let's find Eku, because I agree from looking at the paper. I mean, she seems almost too good to be true.
I mean, and just add a character, like it would be think it would be better to do it with Chris's input. So,
Well,
rather than
especially in the moment where we're at this point in the session, I think it's perfectly fine to have that out of character conversation. I think what we'll do is we'll pick up right about this area. We will figure out what Chris has in mind, where Valdis would be, whether he is actually performing or whether he was a part of what you guys have done today. We will have you all effectively nearing back to the Red Bazaar, and I think we will allow you all. On some level, you would basically also have the knowledge from that little excursion that Joe Ball can certainly put you in contact with anybody that you might need to speak with, and get you the actual hiring accomplished to get a guide. But also, these people live real lives. Going to one of the busiest taverns is certainly a good place to attempt to meet them. You see a lot of their guide information is actually located at places like key places like the Harbor Masters. The actual taverns have some of their information outside of them, as well as the House of Repose. So it's one of those things where you guys can kind of gather. Part of their job when they are not working is to kind of go around and self-advertise. So you have a chance of actually meeting Eku going back to the Thunderous Lizard anyways.